Normally, a pilgrimage to St. Non's Well and Chapel entails starting at St. David's, which is fortuitous because just being in St. David's alone is such an incredible experience, but also because their stories as mother and son are deeply connected. In fact, the story of St. David really begins when he is still in Non's womb, as it is said that one famous preacher was left unable to speak when the pregnant Non was in his presence. It was only when she withdrew that he could continue, and so he declared it was because the child she was carrying would one day be a great preacher himself. But this was not the only story. Actually, it was the reputation he was already gaining before he was even born that caused one local chieftain to declare, out of jealousy and fear, that he would kill both mother and child. Which is what leads us to the place we're headed now. St. Non's Well is the very spot at which St. Non gave birth to St. David. On the night of his birth, the area became impassably dark as a storm rolled in, making it impossible for the chieftain and his men to find Non. The saint herself took refuge in a small depression in the ground close to the sea when it came time to give birth. Yet, however dark it was, she was bathed in light. The pains of labor were so great, however, it is said she clutched the earth with her hands so hard that it opened up in sympathy, and a well appeared. So it was that Wales was given its chief apostle and eventual patron. At the same time, Non's own sanctity was forever marked, and the well remains to this day as a destination for pilgrims.
We've left St. David's behind us, and we're moving towards St. Non's Well now. And I thought I would use the chance as we walked to tell you a little bit about St. Non. She was born in the 5th century and gave birth to St. David, some say toward the end of the 5th or at the very beginning of the 6th century. It doesn't really matter what the exact date was. What matters is who she was and why we call her saint. Non was a woman of this land and a woman equally of great faith. The story of her and her son, St. David, is a familiar one in the sense that we can look to St. Elizabeth and her son, St. John the Baptist. We can look ultimately and absolutely to the Theotokos and our Lord born in Bethlehem. But equally afterward, we have the stories of saints across time, such as Olga and Vladimir in Kiev, and St. Helena and Constantine in the Roman Empire. But there are numerous stories of saints where a mother or a woman of prominence in the life of the later saint somehow lays the groundwork for the work that he will undertake later. Well, St. Non was a dedicated woman and one who intended to lead a religious life. And it was in this context that she rejected the advances of the king of Cardiff. The king of Cardiff responded to his rejection by Non by raping her. Now, this is uncomfortable even to talk about, except that it's important to know she lived a virginal life prior to that moment and lived one equally ever after. But by the rape, she conceived St. David. And even as St. David was in her womb, there were miracles attributed to him. We talked a little bit about those miracles when we visited St. David's, but what we're going to learn about now is a great miracle that happened to St. Non herself. And this is something that the first time I visited the well did not really hit me. It was only when I went there a second time that the magnitude of what happened was made so real to me. And it's something that we will explore together, both visually, by means of touch, and by means of storytelling.
We're about to descend to the well now, but we're just pausing first to look at the sign posted here, telling us a little bit about St. Non's story. And here in front of us at last is the well itself. As you can see, it's well loved and cared for, but because I've already had the chance to bless myself and partake of its waters, it's also my turn to film.
And now, having been blessed by the water of St. Non's well, we're going to make our way over to her chapel. So this is the spot especially significant to St. Non, that became an oratory, a place of prayer after she gave birth. And even now, amidst the ruins, you get a sense that it's a place where the faithful might come and touch on the holiness of her life and the holiness that emanates from the very ground on which we stand. Funny enough, I was about to leave this place because, as you will have noticed across previous episodes of Orthodoxy in the Isles, I find it difficult to say very much about the individual saints. Rest assured, there's plenty to say in the sense that they collectively mean so much. But when it comes to the specifics of their lives, we have so much less to work with. Really, the stories that I'm trying to tell are stories made up of snapshots at best, believable snapshots, in the sense that the result of these holy stories is that the land itself feels sanctified. And I really can't overstate that, because Wales is a glorious place to be. We are walking quite literally on holy ground. And despite the limits of our ability to tell the story, the fact is the stories need to be told. And when it comes to Saint Non and her son, Saint David, we're really talking about examples of faith that fed the land and the people then, but that continue to feed the land and the people today. I think I've said before that Wales is not so much a secular nation today, but rather a forgetful one. Forgetful, not through sort of any deliberate attempts on the part of anyone in particular, but forgetful because it's gone through so much upheaval, whether that was with the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons, or the arrival of the Normans, or the Reformation, or the rise of chapel in these lands. The fact is, there's been so many challenges to faith that have arisen over the centuries. And yet, for all that, there is a deep Christianity here, one that we cannot escape. It's represented by the place names. It's represented by the fact that the land is replete with holy wells, with sights to see, with experiences to have that attest to not just a remarkable history, but a story of sustenance from above that makes it holy. The storytelling will get easier as we move forward in history. That will require that we move out of Wales eventually. But as long as we are here, keep the example of St. Non and St. David before your minds, because theirs is an example that characterizes, I think, all of the other stories, or feeds into the other stories by spiritual means. One of the difficulties we have is that empirical history can only go so far in terms of explaining what this is all about. By empirical history, I of course mean the facts, the details that tell us more about the time period in which we're interested. But none of these stories is about empirical history. All of these stories are shrouded in the mist of time, but also shrouded due to our own unbelief. I'm not saying for a moment that it's necessary for us modern people to set aside our sort of rational faculties and simply accept everything we hear about the ancient saints at face value. What I am saying, though, is that there is a deeper truth to the stories of these saints and what it is they undertook, the miracles that are attributed to them, that take us well beyond empirical history. And so, as I stand here and speak to you today from St. Non's Chapel, right beside, only a few meters away from St. Non's Well, I am a believer.
Hi, and thanks for watching. Before you go, I have just a couple of housekeeping things I need to share. I am an Orthodox priest with a small but growing parish in Cardiff, Wales. I love what I do, but it is made a lot easier with your support. If you enjoy this series and would like to see more of it, please be sure to like each video and subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to get even more involved, you can go over to my Patreon and sign up for as little as the cost of 2 cups of coffee per month. Members of my Patreon receive notification of all classes I teach, the opportunity to participate in the online Orthodox Theology Club and the online Orthodox Book Club, a copy of the quarterly Orthodox Exchange magazine in digital form, and for higher levels of support, the same magazine in print. Along with these benefits, your Patreon membership will be supporting Orthodox ministry in Cardiff, in Wales, and beyond. So if you're minded, please go to the link in the description below and become a member today.